Hello and welcome to Super Lady Hero Hour. I am your host, Yael Tygiel. I'm joined, as always, by the incredible KB. Hello, KB.
Hello. Thank you so much to my wonderful, fabulous, booked and busy co-host, Yael. So thanks everyone for joining today's show. Before we dive in, because there is no news, so we're going to hit it and hit the ground running fast. So before we dive into our shows, this is your full spoiler warning. We will be spoiling these TV shows. Unlike our latest spoiler-free review of Black Widow, this will be filled with tons of spoilers. So if you don't know who died, then you should probably go watch those shows and then come back and see us. So I am going to kick us off and we're going to get into The Flash. So here's the quick cap for episode 15, Enemy at the Gates. So when an army of Godspeeds attacks Central City, Barry and Iris must put their family plans on hold and focus on the latest threat to their home. Chilblain is released from prison and claims to be reformed, but Frost has her doubts. Still hate that name, Chilblain. All right, so tell me, how are you feeling about this week's episode of The Flash?
This week's episode of The Flash continues to annoy me. This show has just gotten, I feel like every episode, it loses. It went off the rails weeks ago, but it just gets further away from the rails every week. I think that the entire thing with Joe is very obnoxious. Like, I don't like when a villain is a villain, and then all of a sudden they're like, nope, not a villain. And so this Captain Kramer stuff is really obnoxious. I also think this Godspeed thing, we got no explanation, and I know that it's going to continue, that it's like the beginning of something, but it still feels like we should have gotten some explanation. Because they just doubled, and then all of a sudden they doubled again, and then all of a sudden half of them are fighting the other half, and I'm like, why? Get any explanation, anything. So it's very annoying. I know how you feel about when someone isn't there and we hear everyone be like, this is where they are. I like it once. I like one time being told where they are. I do not need every 15 minutes to know that Iris is at home. Also, Barry's whole thing of being like, I think you're pregnant. Sir, that's not how this works. You don't have a dream and she's pregnant. That's not how that works. She will tell you if she's pregnant. You don't get to decide that. So then when he realized that she wasn't pregnant, sure, of course not, because you had a dream. That's not how pregnancy works. This episode really, really angered me. What did you think about this episode?
So, so I'm going to say people can have dreams about individuals being pregnant, and that ends up being true. Sure. I feel like that's totally fine. The issue wasn't the dream for me because he wasn't explicitly saying you are. He was like, I have a feeling you are based on this dream that I had. So that's totally fine for me.
But and then he started testing her.
Because he wanted to test her because she was also at home, quote unquote, sick. But for me, the biggest issue is we as viewers already knew that Iris was not going to be pregnant. There's literally no way on this show that they would have the lead actress have a reveal like that and she not be in the episode. So it already was kind of like, whatever, Barry, because we know she's not going to be pregnant because you cannot have a reveal and she's at home sick and we never see her. So I think as viewers, we already knew it was going to lead that way. And then also because, Barry is like the optimist. And so he's putting so much stock into these samples, trying to save these samples. Godspeed just went on ahead and just, came on in, poof. Then he's getting more samples like, oh, I got to do this. And the sample. And I'm like, and y'all are telling too many people and it's not even confirmed yet. So right. I understand being excited. And also I understand actually Barry doing the science himself because he is a scientist. He's actually really smart. And also clearly you don't trust these samples. Sure. But let's just make it a bit more realistic where, they have time, I guess, to process this together. I didn't like that the episode was having them process it where Iris was not there. I think that was the biggest issue for me. So it's like, hey, Barry, it's cool if you had a dream that she was pregnant and you think she's pregnant. Cool. Let's do a test. But I also felt like this would have been a better episode if Iris was actually there. So I feel like all of the background about this potential baby didn't actually matter, in my personal opinion, because she wasn't there. So let's get into the Godspeeds of it all. So my theory is that the Godspeeds are there to stop Barry and Iris from having a child, because it seemed like everything that was intertwined with them having a baby then somehow got, messed up by the Godspeeds. And so I'm like, maybe that's their job, right? They're trying to change the course of history and time by essentially, maybe because they know of what's coming in the future, they are trying to come to this timeline to stop them from creating a family. So that is my only theory that I have, but I agree with you.
I love that.
Yeah, I agree with you that this multiplication process where like you saw one Godspeed, then you saw 12 was like, okay, like what is happening here? And even at one point, Barry was like, yeah, I literally have no idea what's going on. Like at one point he was like, I don't know. I don't understand. We don't either. So here's the thing. You can make fun of the fact that like your lead actor and the titular character doesn't understand, but I just want you to know that that means also that the audience does not understand. So so I just felt like it was like, meh, Chill, Blaine, and Frost, tired of that.
Here's my issue with Chill, Blaine, and Frost. Here's my issue with them. I don't like when a character is rude to his love interest and somehow we're supposed to be won over by this. And that's, I think, what's bothering me the most about it is he's always been like negging her, and I get that we're eventually going to end up with them together, and that's not okay.
Don't want it. Literally not excited about that at all.
It just feels so disrespectful to let that happen because he's rude.
Very, in fact, exceptionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's actually quite terrible, if we're being honest. So I agree. I agree that it is just not what I want, what I hope for. But yet here we are, and they keep throwing it in our face. Yeah. So, I just think, you're right. I don't need to know every 5 minutes that she's at home sick. Really didn't need to know at all. Right. But definitely not every time something happened. Like, go in there, Iris is at home sick. Okay, what does that actually have to do with us, please? I feel like because of everything happening with that, the Esperanza kind of storyline got lost in the mix of things, and I ended up not caring about it. Yeah. When it comes to Joe's storyline, like he could just stay a cop, but sure. And keep his pension. But I feel like what you're saying in terms of him probably like this case being the catalyst for him getting back on the force, I think is 100% right. I also think that Kramer will likely die. So, like he'll have to take the job. I don't necessarily think she's going to be around for the long haul. But shout out to the, representation. Love to see it. But I also think that she probably will not survive it. So that's pretty much, I feel like that was the end of the episode. I feel like the Godspeeds took over, when we weren't just chatting about this potential pregnancy. So.
Yep. All right. Here on Super Lady Hero Hour, we rate everything on a scale from poop to kittens. So, KB, where are you rating this episode?
It was meh for me. So it was like it wasn't terrible. There were moments that I was like, okay. And I needed to stay focused. I think because I've created this theory in my mind about the Godspeeds, maybe that's why I enjoyed it more than a poop. It's because I was like, oh, maybe they're doing this. So it's definitely a spoon for me. Sure. But, heavily leaning towards, probably a poop in the sense that I'm like, we didn't need all of it. Like, let's just kind of get to the point. And also because this is episode 15, and we do not have very many left, I would like to know, where are we headed for the rest of the season? Like, what does that look like? What is happening? So, for you, how are you rating it? I think I know.
It's pretty clear I'm rating it a poop. This was not a great episode. The best part is your theory. Your theory about the Godspeeds makes sense to me. And had it been more overt and had anyone picked up on it, I would have been interested. But because nobody picked up on it and it wasn't overt, and there were so many of them, and then Chester hides in the impenetrable panic room, and a Godspeed gets in.
Just comes right on in. Like, honestly, knocked the door down like he lived there.
Nope. It's a poop for me, friends. All right, let's get into predictions. Now I'm predicting your thing is right.
Yeah. I am predicting that we are going to find out. And so, to your point, you've been saying that like a lot of your frustration this season is the fact that we keep seeing old villains. And remember how I said, I think it ties into where we're going. I think it does tie into something with the Godspeeds. And so, potentially them coming back has caused, because remember, maybe them coming back to try to alter the timeline to make sure that Barry and Iris don't have this kid, potentially maybe that's why we keep seeing all these old villains, like they're coming back and, because they're from different timelines and something is happening, they're being pulled back. So I think it does have to do with time. And I'm really hoping that everyone involved this season, by the time we get to the end, that I can be like, okay, it was slow burning. I'm never going to not think that this season is not slow. But I am still hoping that we will be rewarded in the end with something that makes sense and is compelling as we go into the next season. Because I know they're on hiatus right now, but hiatus is about to end because realistically the show is premiering sooner than later. And so they should be kind of getting the scripts together now for next season. So I'm hoping we do end this season and it's like, and this will launch us kind of into the next phase in a way that makes sense. And I really hope that it has to do with time and we're going to loop it all together for sure. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I would love to see the way that I felt in the last 3 episodes of Black Lightning, where they were like, let us explain everything. And I was so happy. So that's where I think we're headed with The Flash, and we better. Otherwise, this season could very likely end with none of it tying together, none of it relating to each other. And and this was a season. So I have to hope that it's going to come together and all mean something.
So I will say my prediction for next episode is that no, y'all, Joe did not die. It would not. I just, in that car crash that happened at the end, Joe did not die. I mean, I think if Joe's going to die, it would be an honorable death in the sense that we would see him die. They would in that regard. So he can die.
All right. Next up, we are going to talk about Loki. Here's the quick cap for the 4th episode, The Nexus Event. Frayed nerves and paranoia infiltrate the TVA as Mobius and Hunter B-15 search for Loki and Sylvie. What did you think about episode 4?
Yeah, I thought this episode was really good. So I haven't had any issues with the episodes thus far. I mean, I think my biggest issue might have been a little bit of the pacing in the beginning of last episode. And then kind of at the end, it just kind of really took a turn. But with this one, I appreciate a little bit of a slower build because it was giving us, I think, more background context and clues that lead us up to Loki essentially, for the first time, I feel like ever in his life, being completely honest about what's happening. I don't think that we've seen Loki truly, honestly, be this transparent about something ever. In all of the versions of Loki that we've seen through the MCU, I don't think he's ever been this vulnerable. He lost his mom. And when we saw Thor Ragnarok and he, is in prison and he has that moment with Thor, there's a little bit of vulnerability, but I think this at the root of it, I don't know, the show kind of widens and opens up Loki in a way that I personally feel like we haven't seen previously. And when it comes to this, just the fact that he tells Mobius, we're all variants. You're all variants. Everyone's a variant. You had your own life. they kidnapped you. I was like, wow, what a strong word. But the reality is that's true, right? Like you were kidnapped because you were taken. Your memories were essentially wiped for all intents and purposes. And now you are here. So I love that we get to a point where there's a lot of tension between him and Mobius, obviously in the beginning, but where we get to the point where there is nothing but transparency between the two of them, and then they're willing to work together. So I liked that dynamic, that journey. And then I like that just when you think things are going well, then zoop, zoop, people getting zapped left and right. Like Hunter B-15 getting beat up because she finds out the truth and she partners with Sylvie. We don't know if she's dead or alive. Then, Sylvie doesn't know if Loki is dead or alive because he gets the zoop, zoop. For Renslayer, and then Mobius get the zoop zoop too. So I mean, literally, we end this episode like, dang, what happened to all these people? I mean, they are variants, but what happened to them? So I thought it was a really good episode. The only one complaint that I'm gonna have is I 1000% do not want Loki and Sylvie to be an item because they are the same person. They are literally variants of each other. And not only is that wildly narcissistic for Loki to want to be in a romantic relationship with essentially himself, but it is also just not what I want. And it's, so that's probably the one thing that I was like, I was hoping, which we don't know. So I'm just speculating. We don't know what he was about to say because he was upset. But if what I hope I wanted him to say was that they were like siblings, that he had finally felt like he found family. I think that's the direction that I would have preferred, or that I still prefer, because we still don't know, that it go in, because they are two sides of the same coin, right? Like, and he hasn't really been able to trust things. And, his relationship with Thor is very complex, but he's always felt like an outsider because he is adopted. And he is never, and once his mother died, because she was really the only person who really treated him with any type of empathy, I would love to see family restored. And so I'm hoping that that is the direction, that they're going in. But how did you feel about it?
I absolutely loved it. I felt like this episode, there were multiple parts where I was like, oh, you can't end now. And then it didn't. And I thought it was going to, like, there were multiple moments where I was like, this is where they're going to end the episode. And it's such a cliffhanger. And then it kept going, which is even better. I will say I disagree with your relationship take. I think that it's the only person he should be with, because he is a narcissist. And I love that. That said, I think that the sister thing makes sense. Their bond, their love for each other doesn't have to be romantic. It can be familial, and that's fine. But I do understand it because it makes sense as a narcissist. It does make sense. I think that this was a really wild episode. I, at one point, was sure that your theory was wrong, and then it was like, oh, maybe your theory was right. So I'm still on that train. My theory was wrong, which is a bummer. But I'm here for it. I'm here for all of it. So much was revealed in this episode. There was good action. There was heart. There was a fun cameo. I loved watching him get kneed in the nuts over and over. That was really great.
And then there's a betrayal. I mean, because Mobius really thought that they were closer than that. And when he finds out that Renslayer, so here's the thing. I was a guest on a show last week, and we were talking about Loki episode 3, and I'll share those details later. But in that roundtable discussion about the third episode, they kept saying that they want mention of Kang, because in the comics, Kang and Renslayer are actually partners, romantic partners. So it makes sense. She's his girlfriend, and things happen with time with Kang. I totally get it, right? But I kept being firm and being like, we're not getting Kang yet. Like, we know that Kang will be in Ant-Man 3. That has already been, kind of confirmed by Marvel. Jonathan Majors is portraying him. We know that. But I didn't think we would get Kang this early, in this, whatever timeline we're in now, because quite frankly, I don't remember. But whatever timeline we're in for, this phase 4 rollout, I was like, oh, it's too soon. I don't think we get mention of it. But we do have Renslayer. So, here's a little like hook, line, and sinker. Here's like just a little bit of a fish for you. But I still, for some strange reason, even that is a solid theory that has been proven by comics. So I can't say that they're wrong, but I still think in my heart of hearts that a variant of Loki is controlling this. Now, maybe this is not everything, and maybe everything is being controlled by Kang, but I think this particular version of what we're seeing is being manipulated by a Loki. So I guess that's the best thing that I can say. So I could be wrong in the overall sense as we move through the MCU and the phase and everything else that's happening. But I still think that like once we got the reveal that they were essentially like puppets.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and the neck falls right on off and they're like, oh. And she was like, oh, I thought this was it. I was like, Now I will say, the more compelling story of this that we did not get, tiny little Loki girl, or Sylvie, but I'm calling her Loki. I need to know more. Like, I need a full episode on mini Sylvie. Like,
right. I think that was fascinating when she asks, what was it that happened that you took me, and she doesn't remember.
Yes.
That made me think that she's involved as well.
Oh, right. Okay.
That
so like
maybe she's the puppet
one of the time, maybe, but that would, and so that would mean that, you know, like this theory that you have and the theory I have are one and the same. It's true. It is a Loki who is controlling it, but it's her, but she doesn't know.
Right.
But I don't know, you know, I feel like, I don't know. So something that I love and adore about this one is there have been a lot of theories about how many Lokis we're going to see. And, you know, once we get to the end of this episode and we do the mid-credit or end credit, the credits, and we see that like our Loki is not dead, but he is met by 4 other Lokis, and one is a crocodile. I was like, oh, this is it. Not crocodile Loki, plus Kid Loki, plus the other 2 who I'm not even actually sure who they are. I know of Kid Loki, but I didn't know the other 2, but I'm intrigued. Like, now he's met by a world of Lokis, essentially. And like, what does this mean?
So that's that scene when he, you know, he's, as you say, zapped. He's pruned and sent there. Uh-oh. Hello. Am I frozen?
Okay. Yeah, you were frozen. Okay, you're back.
I said, I was saying when he landed there in Lokiville, is that where everyone goes when they're pruned? Where is everybody who's pruned? Does that mean that Mobius is alive? Also, I no longer believe that pruning kills them.
Also, this Lokiville is giving me Whoville vibes, and I adore it. So yes, let's call it Lokiville. Also, when Mobius got the zap, does that mean that he went back to Earth? You know what I'm saying? So is this Loki zap goes to Lokiville, but if you're not a Loki, then you just go back to Earth? Like, what it?
Right, where are you? What happened? Because it seems to not be death.
Right, and so, you know, Loki asked when he arrived there, is this hell? And they were like, he's like, is this hell? Did I die? And they were like, no, but you will die if you don't come with us. So it's like, well, what's the alternative? Like, I don't understand it. So this was the most thrilling episode, literally for that credit scene alone. I think we're mostly like, first off, can this crocodile talk? That's what I want to know.
Honestly, when we enter the room with the time keepers, I was like, this is where we're going to end the episode. And it's going to be so heartbreaking. And then it wasn't. And then when he died, I was like, this is, oh my God. It just, there was so much. There were so many parts where I thought we were going to end and it wasn't. I'm so glad it didn't. Let's rate this episode. I'm very excited about it. On a scale from poop to kittens, where do you give in this episode?
Yeah, I'm giving it a kitten. Thrilled to see where we're headed. Also, because Kid Loki looks the most mischievous. He actually looks like the one to beat. And so just based on that stance alone that he was giving and that pose and the way he was looking at Loki, I was like, this kid's a troublemaker. High key ready to see where that goes. So I'm like, this kid can shake things up. You can always tell, like, he's the one. So, and I should also say, I hope we don't end this reign of Lokis. I want to see more of them in the MCU moving forward. So, how about you? How are you rating it?
I'm also giving it a kitten. It was exciting. It was full of reveals. It was full of twists. Everything about it. It's what I wanted. Any predictions?
Besides the fact that Kid Loki is the one, because I just can't wait. No, I'm sticking on my train. This is controlled by Loki, and we need to know what that means. Now that we have, what do we have now? Jeez, okay. So by the time, now that we have the mention of Captain America being right, because I believe somewhere in one of the films Captain America's like, and then there's vampires, and then and Loki like mentions that on the show.
Mobius mentioned it.
Yeah, Mobius. Someone mentioned it, but I think Captain America also mentioned it before because he said it as a joke in one of the other films. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I bet everyone's right. So now, which I think is a very clever way of Marvel doing that, for them being like, oh yeah, we have vampires. Welcome, Blade. Like, yep. It's just a way to open up everything and be like, y'all don't worry. We got you guys, just in that one statement alone, where Loki's like, oh crap, all of this is true. Yes, all of this is true. We have all of the things and we're about to get them. So magic, vampires, something else he said that I was like, yes, that's coming too. All of them. So I cannot wait. So any predictions for you apart from, yes, Loki is the master puppeteer in this?
I no longer know. I no longer have any predictions, but we only have 2 more episodes. So,
which feels wild.
Yeah.
But it is true. So here we are. All right. So diving into the next show, we are about to talk about the season 2 finale of Batwoman. Here is the quick cap for the final episode called Power. Black Mask unleashes chaos on Gotham, and Ryan tries to stop him without the Batsuit. How did you feel about the season 2 finale of Batwoman?
I actually really like the way we tied everything up. I think this quick cap does not do it justice. I think this was a really good way to end the season, right? This season has been a fresh start for this show. It was, in my opinion, 100 times better than the first season. It was just enjoyable throughout. Everything came together and tied up and made sense. And the big news that was released this week was that Papa Kane will not be returning next season, which we've been asking for all season long. So the fact that he wasn't in this episode and we're not gonna see him again, and Kate's off doing her thing and Alice is in jail, like everything about the way we ended this season was great. I'm ready for season 3. I think we did this right. We wrapped things up. We love Ryan. We get what her strengths and weaknesses are. We have our team. We got our Batwing. It was great. It was fantastic. What did you think about this episode?
Yeah, I think this was one of those finales, to your point, where we got to close out things, wrap them up neatly with a bow, which I appreciate. I appreciate Batwing's debut. I appreciate that it was very Luke-like in the sense that it was clunky and it wasn't, 100%.
Yeah.
I appreciate that Ryan is going to be working with him, kind of one-on-one. I even appreciate the backstory. He wanted to see a Batman that looked like him, and he told his father that, and his father was creating this in secret. I think it's a really nice tie for Luke and his dad, because as we've seen over the past few episodes, he has a lot of healing, I think, that still needs to occur. He has a lot of grief when it comes to his father's death that he still hasn't necessarily processed. I don't think that we've seen, on the show, and that he's still navigating through. And so I think this is a great way of Luke, the character, just being able to be closer to his father. I love that. I still 100% was like keeping my eye kind of open, kind of closed on Kate, because I was like, is this really Kate or is this Cersei still the whole time? Even up until the end, I still was really questioning it. But turns out it is Kate for now, I guess. And so, she's going on her journey, and I like that she was able to kind of have a one-on-one with Ryan and pass the baton, because we do not need this Kate Kane version of Batwoman in Gotham City. I said that over and over again. So she said she was going to National City. I was like, okay, girl, you going to be Batwoman there? Like, not even mad about it. You just cannot be Batwoman on this show. So you can go somewhere else and you can be Batwoman in another city. And maybe that's helpful too. Maybe she's gonna pop up in an episode or two of Supergirl. I doubt it, but that would have been nice. But I have no clue where Supergirl is even headed, and I doubt that they're adding a Batwoman to their mix. I love the end with Poison Ivy. So they have mentioned her this season, and in the end, we see the Ivy coming out of the water, and I was like, oh, is she our villain to be met with next season? Yes. I'm hoping that Alice will take a backseat this season for that.
Right. So there was also a tease for Penguin.
Yes.
With the umbrella. It felt like all of these little bits. I went, oh, we're bringing in like classic villains.
Please.
I'm so excited.
Into it. And bittersweet moment, but we did get a true ending for my boo Ocean. I liked that he and Alice had got to have one more moment when she was on the brink of death. And he was already there. But it was lovely to see his face again. I swear I will be so embarrassed if the actor portraying Ocean watches the show and I meet him in real life. But the way my life goes, that will 100% happen. And I will just be embarrassed when I meet him, but also charming. And so I just, shout out to my boo. But anyway, yeah, I thought it was a good episode. And now I actually also like that they announced plans for Team Batwoman for next season. Now, my prediction last week was that Sophie would officially be a member, but she wasn't at that team meeting. So I don't know how that's going to go because she was saying goodbye to Kate forever, I guess.
Right.
But
which is
weird. They're going to start a clinic. Like Mary has a real job now in the sense that like, Mary, you will be focused on this. And we're creating this new hybrid teen center that also includes medical services. Yay.
But Sophie doesn't have a job and could have left with Kate.
I mean, Sophie's integral. I like her being on Team Batwoman. They just
I do too. I'm just saying.
Like,
there's nothing keeping
Kate
her.
Said, no, it wasn't even that. It was the fact that Kate said, "Oh, I don't think we're destined to be together." Okay, girl, bye. Like, I would have been like, "Okay, well, if that's how you feel," that's why I actually felt Sophie in that moment where she was like, "Well, I guess you're gonna miss this," and she had already made up her mind anyway. So it was like, "Okay, girl, good riddance." I kind of felt like Sophie, like, "Well, if you don't think we're meant to be, then bye, girl." And
I
that's
understand
exactly
that,
what happened.
but Kate's wrong.
Well, Kate is wrong. But she's going to find out too late, and it's going to be too late because Sophie will have a new boo, and we'll move on. So, But yes, I am excited for her to join whenever that happens. But yeah, I'm more excited about these villains. And of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the reveal that Ryan's mother is still alive. Dun, dun, dun. Her biological mother is not dead.
We'll see. All right, let's look, here's the thing about that reveal. My only thought was, remember at the beginning of the season, we were like, Kate's dead. Kate's not dead. Kate's dead. Kate's not dead. That's where we're going to do that. I don't need more of, literally, that was the story with Alice as well. Beth's dead. Beth's not dead. Why are we doing this? Let's stop doing that.
Every season.
Somebody may or may not be dead. I'm not a fan. It reminds me of other CW shows that have done similar things. But anyway. All right, let's rate this episode. Where are you rating Batwoman's finale?
Oh, it's a kitten for me. How are you rating the finale of Batwoman?
I'm also giving it a kitten. This was enjoyable. This was how I wanted the season to wrap up. We finished out our storylines. We had a nice little bow. We teased a little bit villains for next season. They seem exciting. Our team has grown. I'm very happy with this.
All right, so predictions for next season, because I actually think her mom will be alive. I'm excited to see who they cast in that. I'm excited to see who they cast as Poison Ivy and Penguin, if that's the direction that we're going in. I'm also excited. So, a little bit in this episode, we were like creating Bane. It felt like we were, with the police officer, which I was like, I mean, he's already a villain. Do we need to give him powers? Truthfully. Right. But I'm curious to see what kind of League of Villains we're going to, because it seems like they're going all in. And originally we didn't think that the CW had access to these particular DC Comics characters. But I wonder what changed on the back end, because I feel like now it's like, oh, like we introduced Bruce Wayne and now the door's wide open. Like we're doing some things. So I am curious to see, and I hope they are already working on season 3, because I'm like, yes. But my prediction is that we'll see more of these kind of classic, to your point, Batman villains that we've seen. And I'm more so anxious about the casting of them. So What about you? Any predictions for next season?
Yeah, I think not to be a negative Nancy, but I feel like we're more likely to get the way that we had the therapist who was Riddler's daughter. Yeah. And like we got Quizmaster's and his daughter and Riddler's daughter. Like I think we're more likely to not see actual Ivy, but to see some other variation. Same with Penguin. I feel like that's much more likely to be what we get. That said, I did think it was odd that it was like we teased Bane and then it wasn't. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, I would love to see Mr. Freeze. That would be nice.
Yeah. That'd be good. All right. Next, we are going to wrap things up with DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Here's the quick app for episode 8, Stressed Western. The Legends go on a normal romp to investigate an alien that has taken up residence in the Old West. What did you think about this episode?
It was fine. Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like I'm really grateful because I said this last episode. How is it that Sarah didn't reveal that she's half alien? Well, we got right to it in the beginning. She confessed immediately to Ava, which I appreciate. And so, you know, she just wants some normalcy, kind of forget about the fact that she's half alien and also forget about the fact that she doesn't know what that means, except that she drinks a lot of milkshakes now. So many milkshakes that episode. And I was like, what is the connection between being this hybrid alien and all of these milkshakes that you're consuming? And the way my body is set up, I was like, girl, I would be dead by now drinking all of these dairy products. But I'm curious to know where that's headed because there has to be something with these milkshakes. Right. And I thought it was fine otherwise. You know, I do think it was a classic romp, not necessarily a normal one. We had all of the things we like. You know, I like that B is like, I want some camaraderie. Like I want a girlfriend. I want a relationship. I want some affection. I appreciate that. The Bass Reeves tie-in and how in this version of this Western, Bass Reeves is not a hero, but he is a wanted man. I like seeing Dave Ramsey again. I think, you know, Yael and I have talked about before joining that Dave Ramsey is on a tour right now, which I appreciate. And not just in front of the camera, behind the camera too. He's been directing some episodes and then been showing up on episodes of our favorite, you know, kind of CW verse shows. So it's good to see him back and it's good to have him back always on screen. So I like that he was this iteration of Bass Reeves. I think that's great. But yeah, I mean, otherwise didn't really move the narrative forward a whole ton, which is kind of my parameters for most things in TV. Not really. I feel like it definitely tied up some things from previous episodes and we're getting a couple of answers, but I will say this kind of Spooner conflict thing wasn't as interesting to me as it could have been. And neither really was the Constantine on the quest to find his magic again.
Sure.
But yeah.
I think you're right. I think that this kind of felt like a detour from plot. But it did, as you say, wrap up the Sarah being on an alien ship and now she's half alien thing real quick. And I think that it tied in the alien portion with Constantine's story with like he needs to find this thing that only the aliens knew about. I think that was super interesting. And I agree with you. The Spooner thing is kind of obnoxious, but her and Astra's friendship felt like a weird, it kind of feels like we're trying out Astra with different people to see what sticks. And I don't know.
You mean like in terms of friendship, like who's going to be her buddy?
Yeah. And I don't like it because I think that she could just be part of the team. Like, I don't feel like we need to separate her every time and see what happens. Let her be part of the team. I do like that we, you know, again, this season is aliens scattered through time. And I did really enjoy this version. I think an alien that eats, you know, anger, so everyone has to stay calm is really interesting. I think that's a fun twist. It's a very Legends-y twist. And then poops gold. Like they're just everything about it was so Legends.
It was like a normal, yeah, like a very normal thing that you would see on Legends.
Yeah, and I think you're right about the milkshakes and the cherries. I think it was interesting that in the end it was all about the cherries, which made me go, stop ordering milkshakes and just order cherries.
I mean, everyone, they kept saying, what? And even Ava says, what is with these cherries? Like, why is it? So I don't know. There's something in the food that also is alien adjacent, but it was good to see Gary back. I will say that it was funny when Spooner thought she was reading Gary's mind and was like, Gary wants to jump Ava's bones. And he was like, oh, hold on now. Like,
and I like that everyone was like, that sounds normal.
Yeah, and he's like, does it though? Because I do not. Like the whole time he was like, yeah, but actually I'm not into Ava, but thank you, but no thank you. Like, what is this?
All right, well, let's rate this episode of DC's Legends of Tomorrow. What are you rating it?
Yeah, I will go ahead and give it a kitten, but it's leaning heavily towards a spoon, mostly because it didn't really drive the plot forward, but it was still a fun, like, enjoyable episode in the sense that, like, I wasn't bored, but what is the point? And so, you know, kind of now that we or the show rather is on a small hiatus, I think it's a 2-week hiatus. Since it's on like a 2-week hiatus, I'm kind of like, well, what's going to come next for us in kind of this back half? But yeah, like I didn't hate it, but so how are you feeling about it? What are you rating?
I'm giving it a kitten. Honestly, the show feels like it does not disappoint me. And this episode was fun and enjoyable. Usually the Western ones are not my favorite, but this one was silly. And I do like, you know, alternate reality storylines where like the villain is the hero is the villain. I think that's interesting and fun. And so the fact that the bad guy was the sheriff and was like, no swearing and no spitting, that's silly. It's silly fun. And that's what I want from this show.
Okay, so with that said, because the only prediction I have is that we keep that singing narrator, because that singing narrator was a lot of fun and probably my favorite part of the show, to be honest.
That was my least favorite part.
I liked that singing narrator, but do you have any predictions for the next episode when we get back in terms of plot, like where we're headed?
I think the thing that Constantine is chasing is going to be more central. That's going to be our where we're going to head, and eventually we're going to figure out this Sarah Cherries milkshake thing. Do I think she's going to return to humanness? I kind of hope not, because that reminds me again of like the magic thing that she had before, why did we return to humanness?
Really?
Yeah.
Because you were really against her being an alien.
I know, but if we're going to do it, then let's do it.
Wow. I'm super surprised to hear that. Okay. Well, all right then. So let's dive into Performer of the Week. How are you feeling? Who do you think out of these 4 shows really brought it?
Performer of the Week. I'm going to go with, oh, wow, that's a challenge. Yeah, I'm going to give it to Sylvie over on Loki. I think that she was the most compelling this time around, mostly because I have lots of questions.
Oh, okay. So for me, I'm actually going to go with Gugu, who's Renslayer on, and mostly because I am really enjoying the mystery of her character. We know nothing, right? We essentially know nothing. We've seen her throughout periods of time. We know that she's been there. She's been the same age the whole time. So that's also something that, you know, I really feel like Sylvie should have pointed out, like, girl, you are the exact same age you were when I was a kid. What does this mean? But also she's mysterious, but then she has to fake like her and Mobius are friends. And then she turns around and zoops, our Loki. And so it's just really like she's wearing so many faces. And so I'm really, really digging this because what's your true face, girl? Where's your boo, girl? You're from the comics, rather. You know, where's Kang? What does this mean? Where are we going? When can we torture you into giving us answers? Like what is going to happen? Who is the Loki that you're working for? Because in my mind, I'm still committed to it. So I'm going to shout out Gugu because I think, for me, for sure. So how are you feeling about style this week?
Style this week, I'm definitely, I had one and now I can't remember what it was. I think it was Zari's outfit in the Western episode of Legends, because it was like what would traditionally be like a saloon girl outfit, but was very modest. And I think that was so interesting.
Oh, well, remember, it was part of the rules. That's why I take it up as, remember, because his rules were so like,
yeah, but
oh yeah,
Zari
no.
didn't know the rules, and
well, no, I take it that like when they got fused into the town, you know how like when they arrive, that like they kind of become what's next to them, and when you think about it, all of their outfits were modest, and I think it was just, I think it was a part of like the town.
Well,
you know
love
what I mean?
that. I just love that we took a saloon girl outfit and made it modest. I think that's just so interesting. What about you?
Yes. So actually for this one, I was going to give it to Mary's outfit at the end of Batwoman's episode, because I really like that. But I also actually, as a whole, really liked all of the Western looks. So I will say from top to bottom, the costuming on this episode was really, really top notch. I like that as well. And honorable mention will still go to Renslayer, because I do still really love how functional her costume is as well.
Yeah,
I adore it. I think also in that same regard, Sylvie's costume is very, I like a functional superhero costume. And I am adoring that they have functional superhero costumes that make sense for women. Thank you, finally. So shout out to the two of them on Loki. But for sure, I liked Mary's outfit at the very end when they finally kind of say, yay, we're going to do this thing. And life will be so much easier fighting crime next season. They're so happy. I liked her look and I liked her hair and everything. I thought that was cute. But
agree.
The Western for sure, hands down. I feel like the whole cast.
Yeah, Astra's like pants
the whole
outfit.
Cast.
Amazing.
Yeah, everything looked so good. And even the background extras, they're technically not extras because they have speaking roles, but I mean like the other actors who are not on Team Legends. So I apologize for that. The other actors not on Team Legends, all of their costuming, Dave's outfit as Bass Reeves also, like, I just feel like that's the fun of Legends, right? They pay attention to the time period and they're able to do it well. So.
All right. Next up, our OMG or WTF moment. I have some big ones, but you go first.
So when Sarah shot in the head, that was really jarring. On Legends, I definitely was like, oh, okay, because that hole was just like, oh, I mean, and the fact that they showed it, I think it was more so like, I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting to see this hole in her head. That was a WTF, even though like we already knew that she has regeneration powers, regenerative, that she can regenerate.
Yeah,
clearly I'm tongue-tied today. Even though we know that she has that power now, being this half alien hybrid, that's still shocking. It also was shocking when Loki got the zoop zoop. Still shocking, and Mobius zoop zoop. Both of those two, I was like, dang. Yeah. Really glad I stayed for the end credits, because otherwise I'd be really sad today if it was a true loss. And those were really the only two big ones that I was like, boop, you know. That. How about you?
Mine were definitely Mobius and Loki's. Honestly, the Loki one, I was like, oh my God, Sylvie's now and like I assume that's where we're headed. Like I've just been assuming that the same way that I assumed other shows were leading us to someone else taking over. I assumed that Sylvie would be our new Loki going forward. So like when he died, when he zooped, I was shocked when he was pruned. I would say also Joe's car blowing up was unexpected.
Oh, yes.
There was a lot of like unexpected potential deaths.
Which is wild, I feel like, this week, because we're not at the end of these shows. Like the one show that we're at the end of, Batwoman had like literally no OMG moments for me, like not a single one. But the ones that like we still have a lot more episodes to go are like and it was like, oh, okay. They were like, in case you were asleep, here's what we're doing.
Right. All right. Well, that is it for today's packed episode of Super Lady Hero Hour. We also covered Black Widow with a spoiler free review. You can check that out here on our channel. And America, the motion picture, also available. A kind of spoilery review on Super Lady Hero Hour. But until next episode, KB, where are you and where can everyone keep up with you?
That's right. It's the Lady KB. That is TheLadyKYB on Instagram and Twitter. And again, I mentioned, hey, I was a guest on Movie Files YouTube channel to discuss Loki episode 3 with a gang of amazing people. So I chatted with not only Elliot of Movie Files, but his co-hosts Amanda and Chris. And also, I was a guest alongside Michael, another guest, and we talked all about it, dove a little bit into what we want to see, what's happening on Loki. So it was a very low-key heavy episode. We also watched a special trailer live, so shout out to that as well. But yeah, I feel like, which we should probably link somewhere here too, because we didn't cover in the news, but Shang-Chi, that trailer is amazing, so we will link it somewhere for you guys, so that way you can see it if you happen to be living under a rock and missed it. But I can't wait for that. But yeah, so watch our kind of live viewing of that trailer, because it actually dropped while we were live chatting about Loki episode 3. So yeah, check out that conversation now. And also I had a conversation with Tyrese about Fast 9. It is out and available now on Through the Lens of Lady KB. And we chat a little bit about Roman's journey in Fast 9. And Fast 9 is out now in theaters for those who want to go see it. So for you, Yael, where are you this week? Where can everybody keep up with you? Tell us.
I am everywhere at Yael Tygiel. That is YAELTYGIEL. Keep an eye out there for a big announcement coming tomorrow, but also interviews with the cast of Leverage Redemption. IMDb TV's new series is available on Fanversation as a spoiler-free review. That said, if you're a fan of the original Leverage, you are going to love Leverage Redemption. So yeah, keep an eye out for more news tomorrow, but we'll see you all on our next episode of Super Lady Hero Hour. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.